As their ship drifted through the vastness of space toward Telescria, Nolan and Debbie found ways to pass the time together. With nothing but the hum of the engines and the occasional announcement from the ship system, they took full advantage of their privacy. Their moment, however, was rudely interrupted when a server entered their quarters to deliver their meal. The alien attendant, clearly unimpressed by the scene, set the food down with an exasperated sigh. With a look of sheer annoyance, the server quickly turned on their heel and left, muttering something about counting down the hours until they arrived at their destination. As the door shut behind them, Debbie let out a small laugh, buttoning up her shirt. "We really need to find a way to lock that door," she remarked. Nolan, ever the opportunist, smirked and pulled her close again. "That just means we need to be quicker next time," he teased. On Telescria, Allan and Telia sat in their shared home, engaged in a heated discussion about Oliver. "He needs to move out," Telia insisted. "We don't get any privacy, and he's seen too much." Allan scowled at the memory. It wasn't exactly something he wanted to relive. "So that's what this is about? Because he walked in on us?" His voice was sharp, and frustration laced his words. "You know what? Maybe I should be grateful that our species can't have kids together then." Telia recoiled at his words, her expression shifting to hurt. She opened her mouth to respond, but Allan had already turned away. Leaving the conversation unfinished, he made his way to check on Oliver, who was undergoing maintenance on his cybernetic enhancements. The younger hybrid sat calmly as a technician fine-tuned his mechanical limbs, making micro-adjustments to ensure everything was functioning properly. "How's it feel?" Allan asked, watching the process. Oliver flexed his fingers and rolled his shoulders. "Barely noticed the difference anymore," he admitted. "It's like they've always been part of me." With his calibrations complete, Oliver decided to explore the city. Allan, meanwhile, gave Telia a quick kiss on the cheek before heading to work, though the tension from their earlier arguments still lingered. Nolan and Debbie's time together was once again interrupted, this time by an official announcement. A voice over the comms informed them that they were approaching Telescria and were expected at a briefing in 10 minutes. Debbie sighed, already knowing there was no point in arguing. "Let's just finish up," she told Nolan, not willing to leave things unfinished. Elsewhere, Allan was locked in a heated debate with a coalition ambassador. The subject, the Viltrumites. Allan stood firm, unwilling to budge as the ambassador pressed him for answers. "We need a definitive course of action," the ambassador insisted. Before Allan could respond, Nolan arrived, stepping into the conversation. The two exchanged brief nods before Nolan got straight to the point. He told Allan about Mark and the agreement he had made with Thrag. Allan's face darkened. He didn't even try to hide his disgust. "We'll talk about this later," he said, voice tight with frustration. Nolan gave a slow nod, understanding that the discussion was far from over. With that, he and Debbie returned to their quarters. Later that day, Oliver found himself in the middle of a crime in progress. A burglary was underway, and his instincts kicked in. He rushed in, ready to intervene. But before he could act, the local authorities arrived. The officers wasted no time in subduing the criminal, using non-lethal but efficient means. A quick jolt from a taser, and the suspect crumpled to the ground. Oliver hesitated, watching the scene unfold. Back on Earth, things rarely played out this smoothly. Nearby, Nolan observed the incident and, without a word, motioned for Oliver to follow him. They arrived at Debbie's location, where she wasted no time pulling Oliver into a tight embrace. He stiffened, uncomfortable with the display of affection. Nolan, however, had other matters to attend to. Allan had summoned him once more, and this time, it was clear that the conversation wouldn't be pleasant. Inside his office, Allan stood with his back turned, staring out at the vast cityscape of Telescria. When Nolan entered, he didn't waste time defending his stance. He argued that the Viltrumites could change, that Earth could influence them in ways no other planet had. Allan, exhausted and weighed down by the pressure of leadership, shook his head. "I have a decision to make," he admitted, voice heavy with frustration. "And it's not an easy one." Nolan could see the strain in his friend's posture. "What are you planning?" he asked, his gut already telling him he wouldn't like the answer. Allan didn't respond. Instead, he simply asked Nolan to leave. knowing there was nothing more he could do at that moment. Nolan returned home. His mood was soured by the conversation, his mind restless. Meanwhile, Oliver, unaware of the deeper political turmoil unfolding, was just happy to be allowed to stay on Telescria. That night, however, his optimism was tested. Lying in bed, he buried his face into his pillow, trying to drown out the unmistakable sounds of Nolan and Debbie in the next room. He groaned in frustration, pulling a second pillow over his head in a futile attempt to block out the noise. Across the city, Allan sat alone, lost in thought. The weight of his impending decision gnawed at him. Telia, sensing his distress, approached. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. Allan exhaled, staring at the floor. "Am I a good person if I'm about to do something terrible for the sake of the universe?" Telia's expression softened. "You're doing your job," she assured him. "That's what matters." But Allan wasn't sure if he believed that. The next morning, Oliver and Nolan flew to Allan's office, ready to discuss Oliver's future. Oliver was adamant about staying on Telescria. "Earth isn't some paradise," he argued. "Humans fight each other constantly. At least here, things make sense." When they arrived, Allan wasted no time. He told Oliver to leave. The discussion wasn't for him. Once alone, Allan finally revealed his true plan. Nolan's gaze flickered to a particular compartment, the one that had once held the deadly Scourge virus. His eyes widened as he realized it was empty. Allan, his expression unreadable, confirmed what Nolan feared. He planned to go to Earth himself and release the virus. "I value our friendship," Allan admitted. "But this is bigger than that." Nolan's stomach twisted. The virus wasn't just lethal to Viltrumites. It could just as easily wipe out humanity. "You know what this means," Nolan said, his voice dark with warning. Allan met his gaze. "Are you ready to stop me?" Nolan struck first, delivering a powerful blow that sent Allan stumbling back. The force of the hit shook the structure around them, and Allan quickly realized that if they continued fighting inside the building, countless innocent lives could be at risk. Without hesitation, he grabbed Nolan and propelled them both outside, their figures streaking across the sky as they left the city below. Hovering in Telescria's atmosphere, Nolan took a moment to catch his breath. His eyes burned with frustration as he glared at Allan. "How is this any different from what the Viltrumites did to your people?" he demanded. "You're condemning an entire species for the sake of your own vision of peace." Allan remained unwavering. "Because their sacrifice will mean something," he countered. "Humans may perish, but their extinction will ensure the safety of countless civilizations across the universe." Nolan's heart ached at Allan's words. He had fought to escape the brutal nature of his own people, to break free from the cycle of violence and domination. To hear Allan, a man he considered a friend, speak so coldly about the fate of humanity was deeply painful. "I won't let you do this," Nolan said firmly. Without another word, he launched himself at Allan with all his strength, sending him hurtling into Telescria's orbit. "If I have to beat some sense into you, so be it." But Allan wasn't resisting, not entirely. As he steadied himself, he looked at Nolan with a grim expression. "I wanted you to hit me," he admitted, "because I needed to show you something." In an instant, Allan retaliated with devastating force. He struck Nolan with such intensity that the older Viltrumite's body shuddered under the impact. For the first time in years, Nolan felt himself bruising. He gasped, momentarily stunned by Allan's sheer strength. "You still think you can stop me?" Allan asked. "You'll see, once this is over, that I was right." Before he could continue his assault, Oliver suddenly arrived, his expression filled with confusion. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, looking between the two. Seeing Allan attacking his father, Oliver made a snap decision and lunged at Allan, landing a sharp kick right between his legs. Allan doubled over in pain, momentarily caught off guard by the unexpected attack. Before the situation could escalate further, the Telescrian military arrived, their weapons trained on Allan. Realizing there was no point in keeping secrets, Allan explained his plan to them. The virus he possessed was designed to wipe out the Viltrumites, but there was a strong possibility that it would also eradicate humanity. To Nolan's horror, Oliver agreed with Allan. "It makes sense," Oliver said, his voice calm and unwavering. There are only a handful of people on Earth that I actually care about. The rest of the human race, I don't really care about. Nolan felt as though the air had been sucked from his lungs. Oliver, you don't understand, he pleaded. Listen to me. The love humans have for each other, their connections, that's what changed me. Raising Mark taught me to care, to see beyond my conditioning. I was no different from the rest of the Viltrumites, but Earth gave me something they never could, and it can do the same for them. Oliver remained unconvinced. I've read about their history, he said. They only care about their own. They're just like the Viltrumites. Allan, seizing the moment, ordered his soldiers to restrain Nolan. They complied, moving in swiftly. But Nolan would not be held. With a burst of strength, he shattered his restraints and lunged for Allan, determined to stop him by any means necessary. Before he could reach him, Oliver intervened. Nolan grabbed his son by the throat, his grip firm but hesitant. In that moment, he saw Mark in Oliver's place. The memory of what he had done to his firstborn haunted him, and he found himself unable to go through with it again. His hesitation cost him dearly. Allan struck, delivering a series of brutal blows that sent Nolan plummeting back to the planet's surface. His body crashed into the ground, landing hard within the confines of his own home. Dazed and barely conscious, he struggled to move as the world around him spun. Before he could regain his bearings, Debbie was upon him. Overwhelmed with emotion and fury, she attacked him, her fist striking him as tears streamed down her face. "I saw it on the news," she screamed. "You're trying to take over Telescria, aren't you? I trusted you." Nolan, weak and barely able to lift his arms in defense, whispered hoarsely, "Debbie, please. You have to listen to me. We have to warn Mark." Debbie, shaking with sobs, slowly realized that Nolan wasn't fighting back. She stepped away, covering her mouth as the weight of the situation settled over her. Before either of them could act, the Telescrian military surrounded Nolan, their weapons drawn. With no strength left to resist, he collapsed, slipping into unconsciousness as they moved in to take him into custody. And that's where we'll leave it for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Invincible, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into your favorite comics. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this chapter and what you're excited to see next. See you in the next video.